Hey yo, what's poppin' everybody? It's your favorite narrator Aaron back at it with another story, so grab a snack, kick back, and let's dive in. Favorite series on this channel are the EMS stories, and this one is a bit of a throwback from my days running the First Response Club at college. This story comes right at the end of my second year. I only did an associate's degree in college, so after 2 years I was done, and this comes at the very end of this 2 years. At this point, school was actually done. There weren't any more classes. But the way our school did it is that you had an extra week before graduation where you just kind of like hung out if you were available to hang out, or you could go home and come back for graduation. It's kind of a weird setup, but that's just how they did it. And this story takes place during that week intermission in between the end of classes and graduation. Being that the school year is pretty much done and we're all getting close to graduating, I thought the week was going to be pretty chill, nothing much going on, just kind of hanging out with buddies, catching up, taking time to just hang out because you never know when you're going to see some of these people again. I mean, once you get out of college, you might not see some of those people ever again, which is kind of weird to think about. You spend every day of your academic life over the last 2, 3, 4 years like hating life, almost just like busy, like go go go, you don't have a moment to stop, and then suddenly when it's done you look back and you're like, whoa, I'm never going to see some of these people again, and you realize that some of that stability, some of that structure that you had isn't going to be around anymore. That's a really jarring experience. Just to go on a little bit of a side tangent, I know that a lot of people struggle with that once they get out of school because suddenly you're just like thrust out. You're like, you don't have any of that structure anymore. Nobody telling you, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that, and you're done. You have a degree, and you're like, oh shit, what now? I know when this video goes up, it's October, so it's not close to the end of the year, but I know in just a few short months that's going to be coming up, and people are going to be feeling that way. So I feel you. I've been there. It's a tough time to be in. But anyway, back to the story. It was that one week in between the end of classes and the graduation day. The pager app on my phone had gone off and it had said, hey, first response, go respond to the orchards out back of the school for XYZ. I didn't really catch it. I just saw the dispatch to a location. So I grabbed my radio. I said, hey, dispatch, this is first response. Hey, I'm heading to the scene right now. The way it worked for the first response team is that we had somebody who was on duty, and it was usually a different person every day. Being the head of the club, I was on for maybe 2 or 3 days a week, and during that time we would carry around a radio, and then we had a first response room where we kept some of our medical bags, our go bags, EMS supplies, stuff like that. So if there was something that required some supplies, you would go from wherever you were when you heard the tone from the radio or from your phone. You'd go to the EMS club room and pick out your bag and then go to the scene. So my room where I like lived was above the basement where our first response room was. So I got the tone on the radio. I went downstairs, grabbed one of our EMS go bags, and headed out to the orchards. Now, our school was kind of in a rural area. We had these apple orchards behind the school, which is really pretty. I did a lot of morning walks when I was there at school, and I loved walking through the orchards. There were some really cool trails in the woods down below the orchards, kind of on a field or a hill. I mean, it was on a hill. You go down the orchard, down the hill, and then near the tree line, walk around the trails. It was super pretty. So I started making my way to the orchard, and I hear an ambulance starting to pull up. So I'm like, ah, shit, there it is. Okay. And it was coming around the back of the orchard, and where I was walking in was the front. So I had to walk down the whole length of the orchard, and then down a little bit towards that tree line, there was a field. So we walked down into that field, and I could see the lights from the ambulance. The ambulance did a little bit of off-roading here, and it went down from the road down this hill to the scene, and I could just like hear a little bit of yelling. I was like, oh shit, what's going on? As I'm getting closer to the scene, I see the public safety car, which if you're not familiar with college campus, I'm sure a lot of you are, but they all usually have like a first response, not a first response, a public safety vehicle where it's kind of like the campus police, I guess, is the public safety. They just try to make sure like, oh, if you're being drunk or disorderly, they'll, take you back to your room, or they give people rides into town if they needed like a hospital trip or like a hospital appointment or something. They would do that, stuff like that. So I see the public safety vehicle and I see an ambulance parked down also there, and I hear the yelling. I'm getting closer, and in the headlights of the ambulance, I can see a couple people like wrestling on the ground. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? So I don't really know what's going on, but I recognize one of the other people down there. For the purpose of this story, I'm going to name him Arthur because I've been playing a lot of Red Dead Redemption 2, and Arthur is the GOAT. So I see Arthur wrestling with this kid on the ground, and I'm still wondering what's going on. As I get closer, I recognize the other kid on the ground, and he took architecture at this college, and that's a 4 year I think program. So he was just about to graduate from his 4 year. And I see them both wrestling on the ground, and Arthur, he's a member of the first response team and a bunch of other clubs. He was an RA, pretty like responsible guy. And the guy who was wrestling, I was never like close with, but I kind of knew him. You know, when you're like in school and you know of people, but you don't really know them. It was kind of that situation. And the other guy, I'm going to name him Reverend Swanson, just like in Red Dead Redemption 2, because I just did that mission where you have to go save Reverend Swanson because he's fucking plastered. And that's the case with this guy on the ground that Arthur's wrestling right now is Reverend Swanson. He's just plastered. He's gone, and he's got his shirt off. He's just wearing like a pair of pants and his shoes, and he looks pretty worse for wear. You could tell he's out of it for sure. He's just wrestling Arthur. They're just wrestling on the ground. Public safety's there. The ambulance is there, and Arthur kind of gets him into a position where he's kind of pinned. I think he did like wrestling or something back in high school, so he knows what he's doing. Or he did boxing, I think. Yeah, he did boxing. He was actually the head of the boxing club there on campus. So there we are, a week from graduation. Public safety is there, ambulance is there, paramedics, professionals, and we got two would-be graduates wrestling on the ground. One of them shirtless, Reverend Swanson and Arthur just wrestling, and Arthur's got Reverend Swanson pinned down. So when the ambulance pulls up, the paramedics get out, and they have the stretcher. They get the stretcher down there, and the public safety separates them. He's trying to talk to him. He's like, hey, what's going on? And Reverend Swanson just takes off. As soon as Arthur gets unpinned, public safety gets Arthur off him. Reverend Swanson just takes off. And they're like, oh, shit. Like, he starts going into the woods. And Mr. Drunk Guy, no shirt, like, I don't even remember if he had shoes on, no shoes. He just starts running into the woods. And we're like, we got to get him before he, like, hurts himself. You know what I mean? It's fucking, I don't think I said this. It's fucking, like, 2 a.m., dude. So Arthur starts chasing after Reverend Swanson into the woods, and we're all just standing there kind of dumbfounded. And public safety starts running after him, and finally, like, it felt like 20 minutes, but probably like 30 seconds later, they come back, and Reverend Swanson, he's a little calmer now, a little bit calmer. I don't know if maybe he stepped on a rock and his senses came to a little bit. I don't know what the deal was, but he gets on the gurney in the ambulance, and they load him into the ambulance, and public safety hops up there with him, and they're asking him all these questions and shit, and dude was still pretty out of it. The next morning, I got up later in the morning because obviously that happened. I wanted to sleep in a bit. Normally I woke up pretty early when I was in college. Like, I liked getting up maybe around 5:30 or 6, and then going on a walk and eating breakfast before everybody and like heading to the library. I just liked having a chill start before classes. I think I mentioned that before. But this next morning, obviously there's no classes, and we were up late that night with the call and everything. So I go down to breakfast at like 9:30, and I see Reverend Swanson and Arthur down there. They're sitting together. So I go up after I got my food. I go and sit with them. And I'm like, dude, what was going on last night, man? Like, you were obviously had quite the night. And he was like, yeah, dude, I don't even remember it. He's like, I just woke up in the hospital, and I was like, where the fuck am I? He didn't even remember anything. He was gone. Dude was plastered. And yeah, we were just talking, shooting the shit. There were no hard feelings from anything. Turns out that Arthur ended up getting punched by Reverend Swanson when he was still out of it, when they were in the woods when he was chasing him down. So I'm glad he was able to be the bigger man. He was like, look, I know he didn't like he wasn't in the right state of mind. You know what I'm saying? And they were good buddies, so they were able to put the past behind him. Hopefully, Reverend Swanson learned from his mistakes and didn't get that plastered again. In all seriousness, it's good to let your hair down sometimes in college. If you're a new guy there, it's good to let your hair down a bit. But obviously, be smart, be responsible and shit. Don't be like Reverend Swanson and get in fights and run around the woods naked in public safety, and the ambulance has to come and save you. Don't be like that. Also important, have some good buddies who are there to look after you. Obviously, it's not Arthur's responsibility to always be babysitting Reverend Swanson, but it's good to have a buddy or two who's willing to be there when you want to let your hair down a little bit. And I can tell you from first experience, they took turns with that. There were lots of times Reverend Swanson looked after Arthur too, so it wasn't all one-sided, which, that's the way it should be. Anyhow, moral of the story is be safe, be responsible, but it's also important to have some fun too. If you want to hear some more stories from college, from EMS, from anything like that, bleep bloop that down in the comments section below. Let me know that you want to hear that. I do have a lot of more stories. Most of them definitely are like drunk college kid stories. I'm sure you could probably picture that. But there's also stories like the front of our college where the parking lot was, like the admin park, is actually the helicopter landing for medevacs. So there were lots of times I would be hearing on the radio, I could hear that a medevac was coming to pick somebody up. So we would go down and like fucking watch it. And it's so cool to see the flight medics and the flight nurses and stuff working a patient when they took them off. That's just kind of a side note. There was a lot of cool stuff that happened when I was there for a couple of years. On another side note, I think that would be a really dope job. Like I've said in previous videos, I work on an airport and I can see the medevac helicopters taking off from the airport. And I just think, man, that'd be a sick job to work as like a flight nurse or something. Be wicked cool. There's some wicked talented people like to have your critical care license, and I don't know what goes into being able to operate on a helicopter, and it's such a small space. We did a training with the local ambulance service and fire departments and the medevac unit down in town of our campus, and we were able to look into the helicopter and everything. We put on their helmets. You could like flip down the nods and see in the night vision and shit. It was wicked cool. Anyway, that'll probably be another video. I'm not going to give too much of that away. And that'll do it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, remember to press the like button, comment a story of your own from this week that stuck out to you, and subscribe to the channel. We're out here posting every week. If you want to listen without the video while you're doing chores or driving to work, these stories go up on Spotify under Story Snaps with Arrow. Remember guys, life is a story and you are the author. We'll catch you later.